And then I have the word inequality, and it's an inequality because I have a greater than sign, right? So quadratic inequalities in one variable, okay? So all I want to do is this. I want to know, does this value satisfy the inequality? So what does that mean mathematically? It means if I were to take x equals 4 and do what? Plug it in, right? Does it work, right? That's all I want to know. And I would suggest that you use the calculator for these. So I'm going to store 4 in for x, like that. And then I'm going to ask the calculator to give me a true false, right? So is x squared minus 3x minus 10, is that greater than 0? And we get greater than underneath the equal sign, right? And this says false, right? Everybody okay doing that? All right. And again, that's just plugging it. So what would I say? I would say, does this satisfy? You would say no, right? How about the next one? I did some quick mathematics in my head. By the way, what do you need to do before you plug in or before you type in your inequality? You got to change your variable, right? So make sure that we go 2 in for x. And then in this case, we had 2x squared plus 13x minus 7. It was greater than or equal to, right? And this one works. And the last one, I believe, was what? False? Okay. And we're going to use this concept, guys, to help us do something in a minute, okay? Is that good? All right. All right, so here's what we're going to do. We're going to do this at in a little bit of a grander scale, okay? So instead of looking at 3 different inequalities with 3 different input values, I'm going to look at one inequality and an array of input values, right? Now, doing this clearly requires a little bit more time, right? Now, one of the things that you can certainly do is plug this into your calculator, right? And go to the table and then just duplicate these values, right? So x squared plus 3x, I'm sorry, x squared plus 2x minus 3. X squared plus 2x minus 3. All right, got that. We go to our table and we fill it out, right? So give me these values, guys, because I got to put this down. What do you got? What's for negative 5? Negative 4? Negative 3? Negative 2? Negative 1? 0 is negative 3, right? 1? 2? And 3 is 12. All right, now, I sort of glossed over part A, but what did part A say? It said solve this algebraically. That's what you guys, that's what we practiced a couple days ago. You saw a question like that on your quiz. So solve this algebraically. So what do I need to do? I need to factor it. and set my factors equal to 0, right? So it's already in the quadratic form. So all I need to do is factor this. I think it's a +3 and a -1. And then I set those equal to 0. And there's my solution of 1. Now, those are kind of what? Those are kind of confirmed by what I did below, right? Because again, what is this saying? It's saying what values give you 0? Well, -3 gives you 0 and 1 gives you 0, right? So what do we actually learn right there? If we get answers that are integers for this, right? If we get answers like this, we can always go to our calculator to check those to see if they work. Right? If they're fractions, maybe not so much, right? Explain why the zeros you found in part A are not a part of the solution set of the inequality. Okay. Now I got to go up to this, right? Because what does this say? I want the answers that were what? I want the answers that were less than 0. So what answers here were less than 0? Was 12? Was 5? Was 0? No. Would you agree that all these ones were? Okay, now, explain why the answers that we found in part A were not part of the answer. Why didn't I choose -3 and 1? What was wrong with those? Because it said it had to be what? Less than 0, not less than or equal to, right? And so let's write that down, right? The inequality, oops. The inequality is looking for answers, or so actually let's use the word solutions, is working for solutions less than 0, not equal to 0. All right, this is where I'm going to confuse some of you guys, right here. This is where it gets, this is the confusing spot. I'm going to show you a visual, okay? And the good news is we got it right here. We know what this value is, right? It's a root at -3, right? We know that this is a root at +1, correct? If I want the answers that are less than 0, we said answers less than 0 were at -2, -1, and 0. So let me actually take a picture of this. I'm going to put it down here so we can talk about it for a second. All right, so we know that this is at -3, and we know that this is at +1, right? And we said that the answers to this were at -2, -1, and 0, right? But hang on, guys. I mean, this is like, aren't there other answers that were less than 0? Like, what about -1.5? Was that less than 0? And how about a half? A half is right here, and isn't that less than 0? Now, I said -3 is not an answer. Why is -3 not an answer? Because it's equal to 0, not less than 0. But what about all the answers that are really, really close to -3, but a little bit greater? Are those less than 0? Yeah. So isn't answers less than 0 all of these? Right? So if I was to ask you guys what these values are, and I'm going to write it as an inequality, and then I'm going to write it as an interval, right? Actually, let's do it as an interval first. Don't they start at -3, but not include it? So how do I write that as an interval? I start at -3. What do I put on there? A parenthesis or a bracket? A parenthesis, right? A bracket means what? Includes it, equals it, right? So it starts at -3 and it goes to 1, right? And I put parentheses on both of those because what? Because I can't equal those values, right? So that's like the shaded region, right? That's all the answers where this graph was less than 0, below the x-axis, right? As an inequality, what would that look like? It would be -3 is less than x is less than 1, right? Those both mean the exact same thing. Is that okay? Making sense? All right, so I've given you kind of like all the new information, okay? Now, what are we going to do with that information? We're going to solve one of these inequalities algebraically, okay? And there's like a long process here, guys, okay? Just sort of follow along with one of them, and I think it'll make sense, okay? If I want to know where this inequality is less than or equal to 0, right? Tell me if this makes sense. Does everybody agree that this is going to be a happy parabola? Why is it going to be happy? Because the x squared is positive. Do we all agree? Actually, I'm not even going to put that on there. Do we all agree that I'm going to have some x-axis? I'm going to have some parabola. And what I want to know about that parabola is what are those values? And I want to know where is the parabola less than or equal to 0. So if I want to be less than or equal to 0, I want to know what are the values that fall what on the number line? Well, okay, so below. So do I want the answers between the roots or do I want the answers outside of the roots? Between, right? The highlighted area is between the roots, isn't it? I mean, I know it's below, but x values, it's between, right? Okay. So I need to know what are these roots? Okay, what are these roots? Well, if I want to find the roots, what do? I take this and I set it equal to 0. Now I know that the inequality says less than or equal to, but I'm going to change it to equal so I can find the roots. So my first step is to find the roots. Let's see here. X minus 9 and x plus 4. All right, so once I get my factors, I set my factors equal to 0. So I have roots of 9 and -4, right? So what does that mean? It means that this one right here has got to be a 9 and this one right here has got to be a -4, right? In terms of the roots, in terms of what the x-intercepts are. Now, guys, look at my graph. Again, the answers are where? Underneath and between those roots, correct? All right, so would you agree that the solutions to this is everything between -4 and 9? Now, do I include -4 and 9? This says less than or, so am I allowed to be on the roots? Absolutely, right? So my solution is going to be brackets -4 to 9, right? Now this says represent the solution on a number line, right? If I asked you guys to represent that on a number line, it would look like this, wouldn't it? Which is why I said what, Jamie? I said everything between the roots, right? Because that's where this is highlighted. All right, so all I really did right there is what, guys? I sketched a quick parabola, found the roots, and then figured out where it was below or above the x-axis. Now, I showed you guys a different way to do it than these directions suggest, okay? So bear with me as I show you another one here. Guys, look at that problem. How is it different? There's no zero, right? It's not in the quadratic form that we use to solve quadratic equations, right? So I want to know where that thing is true. So what I need to do is I need to set it equal to zero, right? So step number one, so I got to change my directions a little bit now. So step number one is set. Now, I'm using the wrong word. I said set equal to zero. There's no equal sign in the problem, right? So instead of set equal to zero, what am I going to say instead? Move everything to one side, right? Move all terms to one side. All right. So I'm going to subtract the 10x and add the 8. Subtract 10x, add the 8. Oh my goodness. That's going to give me a 2x squared minus 14x greater than or equal to 0. Negative 8, positive 8 cancels, right? All right, move all terms to one side. Got that done. Now I want to find the roots of the quadratic. And to find roots, I got to set this guy equal to 0. So I got to change that inequality sign just for that purpose, right? Just so I can find the roots. All right, what's my first step to finding roots? Oh, let's get it equal to 0. Did that. Second step is to factor it. When I factor, I always look for a, and in this case, I have a GCF of 2x, which leaves me with an x minus 7, right? I ask leading questions for purposes, guys. How many factors do I have? 2 factors, right? What do I do with them? Set them equal to 0 and solve. All right, so I have a solution of 0 or a root of 0. And I have a solution of 7 or a root of 7. Now, guys, really quick question. When I look at this, happy or sad parabola? Definitely a happy parabola, right? With roots of 0 and 7, right? So if I asked you guys to create a quick sketch, right? Just a really, really quick sketch of the parabola. What would it look like? Well, you would have an x-axis. You would have a y-axis too, of course, right? I don't really care about the y-axis. And you would have a happy parabola. Here's my happy parabola with roots of 0 and 7. But here's the key, right? Now I got to go back to my original parabola. And the step where I what? The step where I changed it from an inequality sign, right? What do I want to know? I want to know where the parabola is greater than or equal to 0. Well, guys, isn't this where it equals 0? So where is this parabola greater than 0? Isn't it all of that and all of that? because that's where it's what? Above the x-axis, right? So these are all values that are greater than or equal to 0. These are all values that are equal to 0. These are all values that are less than or equal to 0, right? So how do I write that solution down? Ready? This is really important, guys. Do you agree that these solution, that this piece right here, this thing right here, do you guys agree that that thing right there is to the left of that root? And do you agree that this blue piece right here is to the right of this root? So is it fair to say that the solutions are not between the roots like before? In this case, the solutions are outside of the roots. Make sense? Now, isn't this going to just keep going up, 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 and left, 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 left? So aren't solutions going to keep going left for how long? Yes, right? Forever. So is -5 a solution to this problem? Is -10? Is -20? Is -infinity? Yes. And do you guys agree that this right here is indicating that it's rising and moving which way? Which way? To the right. So is 8 a solution? And is 9 a solution? And is 30? And is infinity? Yeah. All right. So this is where, again, this is where it gets a little complex, right? My answer here is everything to the left of this root and everything to the right of this root. If I write it as an interval, it's everything from -infinity to 0. Am I allowed to include 0? This says greater than and equal to, right? So my solution is -infinity to 0, including 0. But then there's another piece, right? Then there's another piece. And where does that next piece begin? At 7, and it goes to infinity. Like that, right? Hey, really easy way to think about this, Leonardo. When the answer is between the roots, there's only one piece of an interval. When the answer is outside of the roots, there's always going to be what? The two pieces, right? There's going to be this piece to the left and then this piece to the right. So you're going to have to write it as two separate as a union of two separate intervals. All right, let's do this one. X squared plus 14x minus 6x less than blah, 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 blah. What do we got to do first? Move everything to one side, right? All right, so I got my inequality, right? So this is the inequality I need to analyze. Right, that's the one that I'm ultimately going to look at. Now, before I can do that, what do I got to do? I got to figure out the roots of that, right? So I'm going to set it equal to 0. Is there a greatest common factor? No. I have two terms, so it might be a difference of squares. And is it? It certainly is. X plus 5, x minus 5. Two factors, set them equal to 0. All right, got my answers, right? Again, guys, what do those represent? Those represent the roots, right? Of the roots of the inequality. Okay? Talk to me about this now, because now I got to sketch it, right? Happy or sad parabola? Happy, right? In fact, if we're doing our job, if we're being smart about what we're doing, we're probably trying to keep everything to the left, trying to keep our parabola happy, right? Things like that, okay? Roots of -5 and 5. And what do I want to know? Well, this is where it's greater than 0. This is where it equals 0. And this is where it's less than 0. Oops, wrong signs. Greater than 0. Did I put that in the last one too? I feel like I did. Oh, guys, change this. This should just be greater than and less than. Get rid of those equal signs, right? Obviously, if I'm above, I'm not equal to 0, right? All right, so in this case, what did I want, guys? I wanted the answers that were less than 0. So less than 0 are the ones that are going to be below. The ones that are going to be between the roots in this case. Am I going to include the roots? No. So where does my interval begin? At -5. And where does it end? At +5, because I'm between the roots. There's my solution. Go ahead, guys, try that one. The factoring is going to be a little bit more challenging, right? But the actual process the same. I'm going to show you what I got. Hardest part of that one's going to be getting your roots, right? You got to use your AC method. Five and -12 is -60. The factors of -60 that add to be 28 are 30 and 2. I got 5x and 30. I got 5x minus 2. Ultimately gives me roots of -6 and 2/5. Okay. Again, what did I say like a couple weeks ago? I said factoring is like one of those things that you got to be able to do, because we're going to need it to continue to do the things that we're going to continue to do, right? So I have my two roots, okay? Talk to me about these roots. I want to know ultimately, where is this greater than? Where is this greater than 0, right? So that means everything that is above the x-axis, right? So I'm looking at this part of the parabola and that part of the parabola, right? Which means I'm looking for the answers that are between or outside of the roots. The ones that are outside, right? The ones that are outside. So it's going to start out here at -infinity, and it's going to end at +infinity, because I want the outside answers, right? -infinity to -6, and 2/5 to infinity. Why did I use parentheses? Yeah. Ugh, God, what a bunch of morons. All right, so everybody agree? Everybody agree with that? Or yeah. Everybody agree with that and agree with that, right? And again, what did we use? Parentheses, right? Parentheses. Good? That's a tough one. All right, that's definitely a tough one. Okay, ready? Example 40. All right, I'm gonna move a little quickly here, guys. This one does not suggest, right? This one does not suggest that I need to do it algebraically. All I want to know is, where is this parabola greater than 0, right? Where is this parabola greater than 0? So x squared minus 4. I want greater than 0, right? So I want this piece and I want this piece, okay? What are the roots of this? 2 and -2, right? So do you guys agree? Now look at the way that this one is written. This one's not written as intervals. This one's written as inequalities, right? So would it be fair to say that if I want this piece, I want everything that is less than -2. If I want this piece, I want everything that is greater than 2. Fair to say? All right. Let me take a picture of that. I want it to stay up there. Why won't it stay up there? Oh, unbelievable. You want to bet? Watch me. Oh, I'm gonna make it do. I'm gonna make it do what I want. Yeah, that's right. Yep, you better believe it. Shayla! Shayla, I want, again, I want this parabola. I want to know where it's greater than 0. So you agree that it's going to be this piece and this piece. Do you agree that that highlighted piece right here is where this graph is less than 2? And, oh, I'm sorry, not 2, but -2. Good. And that this highlighted piece is where the graph is greater than 2, right? So I'm looking for x is, let's see here, x is less than -2, x is greater than +2. That's this one right here. Cool? All right. Here I have a number line, right? Now look at the way that this one is written, guys. It says the number line, blah, 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 is the solution for which of the following inequalities? Well, this starts at -4 and ends at +2, right? Including, because look at what's on those filled in circles, right? So I want everything from -4 to +2, correct? So right away, what two choices do I know don't make any sense? 1 and 2, because what do those ones say? Those ones say that I can't equal 0, right? Now, guys, look at both of these choices. Are both of these choices happy or sad parabolas? They're both happy. So I have a happy parabola with roots of -4 and 2. Now, I want the answers that are in between the roots, right? because I have this closed single interval. Well, where are the answers that are between? They're these ones, right? Are those the ones that were greater than 0 or the ones that were less than? Less than, so it's got to be choice 4. All right, last question. Which of the following is the solution to this? Guys, this is the first time I've done this, right? I gave you a parabola with a what? A negative x squared. So what do I know? I have a sad parabola. Now, what do I want to know about this parabola? I want to know, where is this parabola greater than 0? Well, greater than 0 is definitely up here, no doubt. So do you agree that that means that it's this piece of it, right? So check it out, guys. Is that the solutions that are outside of or between the roots? Yeah, it's the ones that are between the roots, right? It starts here and it ends here. It's all these ones, right? So as we look at this, I know it can't be 3 or 4 because it's not going to be 2 separate pieces, will it? So let's get rid of those. What I need to know is, what are the actual roots of this, right? What are the actual roots of this? So what are a couple of things I could do? Well, I could definitely graph it in the calculator, right? Do we remember the following? I haven't showed you guys this yet. All right, so on our calculator, guys, is an option for me to get roots by direction of the calculator, right? So literally, it will just spit them out. So if I go to menu and I go to algebra, there is a polytools. Okay, so I go to the same place that I would unsolve, except I go down to option 3, which is polytools. You're going to find roots of a polynomial. Now, the degree is simply the highest exponent. Well, it's a quadratic, so it's the exponent. 2. Don't worry about changing this. All right, someday we'll talk about this, but not yet. And then all I'm going to do, guys, is I'm literally going to type in the coefficients. So I have a -2, +7, -3. And it looks just like that, right? And this will give me the roots. Just that simple, okay? And we'll be doing more with that, okay? Like, that's not the first time we'll do that. So I have roots of 1/2 and 3, 1/2 and 3, and so it's got to be choice 1.